Kev. So did you already set, now that we have more people, let's reset the frame?
Yeah. So what we've been doing, for those who aren't here, we've been doing, starting with wins and then going through and then doing intentions and then trying to help each other with their intentions or whatever you're going through throughout the week. Maybe you're something that you're dealing with. Today, we had a different idea. So we want to do some sort of framework every single week to help out what our clients are going through. So a lot of my clients right now are dealing with issues of the only people who are into personal development are kind of Alan and myself. And they're listening to us, but they're not finding people in real life that are as ambitious as they are. They don't believe in them. They're telling them they're crazy for the things that they want to do. So we have this framework that is called the 5 buckets. Brendan Burchard came up with the 3 buckets. Alan and I added 2 of those. One of those was from one of our mentors. So the goal is basically to go through that. Any questions you have during, feel free to hammer them. We'll also take questions at the end. But this has definitely been one of the, in terms of a fundamental game changer, this is something that has changed Alan and I's life just as much, if not more, than everything else. You want to add to that, Alan, before we go?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, one of the reasons we created this mastermind is to get you guys all around like-minded people who really care about this stuff. Because Kevin mentioned that a lot of people don't have hyperconscious people in real life. And the thing that's interesting is if we all want to grow and change, especially during this challenging time of COVID, everyone in our life values us up to this point for who we have been. But if who you have been is not who you want to be or who you aspire to be in any regard, for me, alcohol is a perfect example. I used to drink often, and a lot of my friends drank. And I remember a quick story. So Emily, you came to a party at my home, and that was after a fitness show. And I had a friend from college who used to party at my home back when we were in college. And he said, oh my God, it is amazing how different the crowd is. It was all fitness people, bodybuilders, almost no one was drinking. We were still having just as much fun, but the alcohol wasn't involved. So most of my old friends weren't there. And that doesn't make them right or me right. It's just when your core values change and when you become growth oriented, the people from your past who aren't really have a hard time dealing with that. So that's what this is going to help people with. This framework really helps us understand why we feel so much tension with our anchors and why we, basically how to get around more engines.
And like Alan said, I want to preface this whole conversation with the fact that if somebody is labeled a maintenance friend or a nostalgia friend, that does not mean they're that kind of person. It doesn't mean they're any less valuable. It just means at the end of the day that they might not be what's most congruent for you moving forward. They might not be what's best for you to accomplish your goals. That's all that means. It doesn't mean they're bad people. Again, 3 years ago, I was probably an anchor to a lot of people because I was very short-sighted. I had no belief. I was telling people they were crazy when they wanted to do things. So I was that person. So it doesn't make you a bad person, but it's very important to check in with these because would you trade in a friendship with somebody for success? That's kind of what this could come down to. Is it always that cut and dry? No, but all right, so let's get into it. So number 1, the first bucket is nostalgia. This bucket is the people in this. You might see these people once a year. You might see them at a family get-together, a graduation. These are people from your past that you really aren't connected with nowadays. Just consider them old friends. You have a lot of memories with these people, but you're probably not focused on building more memories with them right now. So like Alan said, a lot of his friends that came to the party that said like, oh, it's a completely different crowd than it was. That's the reason why they're kind of nostalgia, or the next bucket, maintenance friends. Anything you want to add to nostalgia, Alan?
I do. So I heard this quote once from a movie called The Departed. I'm sure you guys have all heard of that movie. He said, I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. I never forgot that quote. I hate that character. I don't necessarily, that movie's good, but that character's a terrible person, but that quote is fire. We want our environment to be a product of who we aspire to be, not the other way around. And the one thing that, whether it's the biology of belief or any personal development material that's fascinating, it's like the only way to really get control of who we are is in some ways to get control of our environment. We did an episode today about setting up your environment for success, because with this move, I didn't realize how well designed my life was around my system of success. But as soon as I move into a new environment where I don't have the right tools in place, it is very hard to be consistent and to ignite the compound effect of good habits. So again, these people, I have specific friends that I grew up around. Geography was the main focus for the beginning. That doesn't mean I won't always love them. I have one person in particular I'm thinking of who's like a brother to me. He always will be. But we are not similar. We don't have similar habits. We definitely don't have similar ambitions. And that's just what the Nostalgia Bucket's about. That doesn't mean I won't always be friends with him. It just means I'm not going to be hanging out with him every week.
And this is a question that I ask at my speeches. Are the people in your life the best from your past or for your future? Like, that is a tough question. And sometimes it hurts to answer. But again, we all want more than what we have. That's why we're having these hard conversations. That's why we're into personal development, because we want to keep growing and expanding. And imagine the difference it makes when you have people in your life that are lifting you up and not holding you back. So that's why it's so important to measure these. So maintenance is the number 2 bucket. Maintenance is people that you probably see more often, but you don't necessarily expect to leave the room knowing more than you entered with. You might get perspective, but you probably don't have a lot of the same core values. You're probably not as focused on growth. They're probably not as into personal development. I always say, like, they're the people that you wouldn't even tell about this mastermind, because they might either judge you or say, like, what, are you joining a cult? That sort of stuff. Like, and again, nothing against them. I thought Tony Robbins was a cult leader for a short time in my life before this started. So, but you'll know, like, you don't have to cut these people out of your life. Like, that's something that I want to reiterate throughout this entire thing. I have done that, and some days I honestly regret it. I always want to give the advice to people that, like, it's not about cutting people out. It's about reallocating time. It's about reallocating time, going in with a certain intention. Okay? The problem happens when you're not the same person. So I used to smoke weed like every day. A lot of my friendships were based on me getting high, hammering pizza, and playing Call of Duty Friday night, Saturday night, and all day Sunday. Now, that's not me anymore. That's fine. Some of the older people in my life still want to do that. It's just not a match for me anymore. Doesn't make them a bad person, but I had to let go of that weight in order to do what I want to do. So that is maintenance.
Does anyone have any questions on maintenance or Nostalgia Bucket right now? Because right now, this is a very tough conversation to have. We all love the people in our life and we care for them dearly for many different reasons. But if you understand this framework and you can put people in buckets, not because of intrinsic value, everyone has the same intrinsic value, but based on your unique goals, your unique ambitions, your unique core values, the key is to fill these buckets. This is what I see as, imagine this arrow right here is progress towards your dreams at the top. The more it tips in this direction, the more progress and momentum you're going to create in your life. If you feel like you're not making a lot of progress, I can tell you, I'll use fitness coaching as an example. Some of my clients are on this call. One of the first things I have them do is write down 10 of the people that have their heart. What we focus on, we feel. What we feel, we do things about. So nothing influences us more than the people we love. So I have them write out 2 things. Number 1, the dedication to their fitness goals of the 10 associations that have their heart and their attention. And then number 2, their results. And what they realize is, I don't feel motivated in fitness. It's not because you're not motivated. It's because someone's trying to join. We know him, Kev.
Jason.
It's because you don't have anyone else in your life who's super into fitness. Like, out of my associations, Nate Smithson, Matt Ryan, Kevin, like, I'm the least strong out of all of them. I'm kind of the least in shape. Although I'm not sure right now with Kevin Hammer and during quarantine.
I'll watch every call if I have to.
But I have to have an all-out sprint just to keep up with them. That makes me better, not because they're any better than anyone else intrinsically, but they're better in that specific arena. And here's the other thing I want to make sure we mention. Anchors and engines, I can guarantee you I'm an anchor in certain arenas, guaranteed. But I'm an engine in others. If it's personal development or system of success or mathematics, I'm definitely going to be an engine. If it's, certain other things, I'm going to be an anchor for sure. So the key is, what do you value? What do you want to make progress in? And then who's in each bucket at each time? And progress towards your dreams is going to be predicated on how much weight you can put in these other buckets to balance out these ones. And so limited associations, disassociations, and expanded associations. We want more expanded associations in these buckets. And then we want to limit our time in the anchors, and you're going to find so much more progress. So
I always think of it as like the Libra scale. Which side of your scale weighs more? That's the way the ball's going to roll. And Alan drew that arrow. For me, a lot of things have happened. Like Tiff knows this, Taryn knows this because we're dating and we dated before this. Amy knows this. The people close to me know that I've made a lot of progress in the last 3 or so years. I don't have almost any anchors. I've been blessed where Alan's been a good friend of mine, and Alan is the most into personal development. My best friend, Matt, wants to be one of the best real estate agents in the world. I've just been surrounded by great people, so I didn't really have to distance myself from people. And if you feel like you're being held back, then there's a checklist to go through. Is it your habits? Is it your clarity? Is it your work ethic? Is it your consistency? After you get done with you, then it's time to branch out and figure out, okay, what about my environment? What about the people that I'm seeing every week? What about the people that are either holding me accountable or not holding me accountable? Okay. And that's why this is one of my favorite things ever to talk about, I think, but it's also the most personal thing to talk about. And this is where a lot of pain comes in. Like I want you guys all to be honest with yourself. And after this, write down who are my nostalgia friends? Do I have anybody in my life that, we have good memories, but that's probably all we're going to ever have? Or how many maintenance friends do I have where it's like, we're just kind of hanging out because that's what we do. That's what we used to do. We used to hang out and drink. That's what we do now. Okay. Next, mentee. Uber important. So anytime you're learning, what do you do after you learn? You practice. What do you do after you practice to lock it in? You teach. Okay. Anybody that you have the ability to teach on something. Now, like Alan said, I always think of it this way: plus, minus, equal. In any room, you want to have people that are better than you. You want to have people that you are mentoring, and you want to have people that are on your level. And we're going to talk about the on your level down the road there. But the thing is, I can mentor Alan in fitness. So to me, he could be a mentee in the gym one day. But when I'm going to Alan for, hey, what book should I read? That's when he's mentoring me. That is the best kind of relationship to have, where you have this give and take. And as long as the person knows and is humble enough to say like, hey, I don't know that. That's not my specialty.
The only difference between a mentee and a maintenance friend is the mentee is super eager to learn and they're humble. So the greatest masters are always the ones most excited to be a student. If there's something that any of you are better than me at that I value, I guarantee you I'm going to put on my mentee hat and learn as much as I can from you. That's what we do every week on the podcast. We have a guest on specifically that has mastered something that we value. We bring them on and we ask them questions that we believe we want to know and the listeners want to know. And that has changed our life so much. Just the podcast and being able to pick the brains of so many incredible people. Because we all know a lot of this stuff, but if you don't have an emotional connection to it through an association, it's such a different game.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like, I always say the quality of a relationship, whether it's, an intimate relationship or a business relationship or a friendship, it's based on the level of vulnerability that you can share. Now, it's very easy to be vulnerable with somebody who knows the steps that you're trying to take, and they're not going to judge you. David Meltzer will never judge us for saying we want to accomplish some crazy goal. He actually challenges us to stop screwing up, basically. Like every week, it's like, you guys are the biggest bottleneck. Every week. I don't think that's ever going to change, but that's why it's so important, because not only are you getting information, you're seeing what's possible. Like, we met David Meltzer in person many times. He's a regular dude. He's a real human being who has the results that we want. If he can do it, we can do it too. And that helps build that belief. Right. Anything else in mentee?
I think that's it. The other thing that I want to say about getting around mentors, which we'll get to in a minute, is you realize another thing, that they're human. And so someone with $120 million net worth, like David Meltzer, for example, when you get around him and spend time with him, you realize like he's just a dude who's really good at business, who's really good at adding value, and who made specific choices and ignited the compound effect a little differently than some of us. But he's not better. That was one thing that I noticed happening in Kevin, is when we would get around certain really wealthy people, because he had this limiting belief, if you don't mind me saying,
come on,
of like, I didn't go to college, so I'll never be wealthy, or didn't believe that he could be wealthy. Now his goals have drastically increased, in large part because he would get around millionaires with me and realize like, wow, they're not like that good at this other thing, or they're not, their relationship's not great. So it's not a judgy thing, but it is looking at the truth. And here's the other thing I'll say. When you have mentees in a given arena, you have people that are peak performance partners in a given arena, and you have people way ahead of you. You live in the truth, because you won't be arrogant because you're around people that are killing it. You won't be self-doubt because you're helping people who are way behind you. Like if you're teaching someone on their chapter 2 in business when you're on chapter 12, but you're learning from David Meltzer on chapter 30, it keeps you in the truth. You can't delude yourself into thinking you're better than you are. If you think you're good at fitness, go to the gym with my fitness coach. You will immediately think you're weak and frail, like no matter what level you're on. Like I have yet to go to the gym with him and not reevaluate my life. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's if you have self-belief. And we can talk about, if you have self-doubt, it can be really hard to be in these rooms because they're way ahead. So we got to be careful about that too. But I think it'll keep you from being, that's why this needs to be balanced. Because if you have too much wisdom bucket, which Kevin realized he had so much wisdom bucket, for a little while there, you were starting to doubt yourself because it's like everyone around me is so far ahead of me that it can make you really hurt your self-esteem. But if you have all people over here, I've met people, okay, seriously, who think they're in shape. And it's not that they're in shape, it's that they're not around anyone in shape. I know that sounds hardcore, but it's true, because they're around a bunch of, it's really easy to think you're in shape when you're around a bunch of people who don't care about fitness. It's very hard to think you're in shape when you're at the beach with a bunch of fitness models. All I'm saying is that whatever your goals are, align with these buckets and you will watch your life transform more than anything. Now, this is hard to do because during quarantine, we're forced into this kind of like small area where we kind of have to deal with each bucket for what it is right now. But that doesn't mean online. Kevin and I were on a LinkedIn Live the other day, and Nicki Minaj and T.I.'s manager was on there being interviewed by David Meltzer. We were in the waiting room, and they were saying something really interesting. They were saying right now, anyone out there, like Taylor Swift, for example, she used to sell out stadiums of 60,000 people, like Gillette Stadium. I went and saw her. She now is looking for business opportunities. So if there was ever a chance to get her on the podcast and pick her brain about what her life has been like, it's now. And so the point I'm making is, if you want wisdom bucket people, now is a time to reach out virtually, because people want to help you. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that in a minute. But right now is a very unique time, because everyone who was really on their own sort of journey where they're doing all these big things, now they have more time right now where they can really help you virtually. You can reach anyone in the world right now. And I want to encourage everybody to do that.
I like the fact that you touched on, and this is something we always coat everything we talk about with, your level of self-belief is going to alter the way you see things. So yes, when we were in California for Brendan Burchard's Influencer Academy, we interviewed Dave Meltzer, and he was talking about introducing us to Tom Bilyeu. Like, okay, that's going to be a whole thing. Then we interviewed Anthony Trucks, who is uber successful. We were meeting all sorts of really successful people at this event. Then it's like, oh God, I'm way out of my league. When for Alan feels at home there. So if you're very confident getting around people who have the results you want, you're going to say like, I am doing the right thing. If you lack belief, it might make you say, ooh, I got to step up my game a little bit. But the thing is, like, you're going to work your way up anyway. If you're just getting started, somebody who is in your growth bucket is going to be different. Like, I always like to say the sliding scale. You got the old sliding scale. So it's always going to change. Because right now, I'm a mentor to people that 3 years ago I wasn't. Right? So it's going to change. Okay, so let's do growth bucket. So this is where you build your dream team. Your growth bucket is people who have similar core values. They have similar ambitions. They're very much into getting better, whatever that means to them. They're the type of people that are on this call right now where if you said, hey, there's this mastermind with a podcast that I listen to, they're like, hell yeah, let's do that. That's awesome. That's a great opportunity, right? These are the people that you want to surround yourself with, because they might not be doing the same thing. So maybe they're not podcasters. Maybe they're not fitness coaches. Maybe they're none of those things, but they're into personal development. So they understand these fundamentals. They have a growth mindset. Maybe they can't tell you how to grow your podcast, but maybe they can tell you how to build a new habit. So that's the beauty of having a bunch of people in this growth bucket. They all have different perspectives. They all have different specialties. And this is really when the plus minus equals comes in, because they're not going to be, we have people in our podcast mastermind. We're the most consistent podcasters, but one is really good at branding. One is really good at business and getting high ticket clients. Coaching. So plus minus equals. If you can build that into your growth bucket, again, that's the biggest game changer for me, for sure.
So we all have a certain standard in each arena, right? It's like the thermostat. If your thermostat's set for 70 and everyone else in your life is at 65, when you go up to 75, they're either going to raise to your level or you're going to go down to theirs. It's the law of averages. So if me, Kevin, and someone else were in a room together and we're all just hanging out, there's this subconscious averaging that's happening. So let's say I'm a 8 in fitness, Kevin's a 7, and someone else is a 4. 8 plus 7 plus 4, you're looking at what? 19 divided by 3. That's the average of the room. You want to get in rooms. If you want to get better at playing tennis, you got to play tennis with world-class tennis players, but also people on your level, and then help teach people how to play tennis, because it locks it a little bit deeper each time. I'm telling you, I've learned more from my clients, especially my female clients, than I've taught them in certain cases, because teaching these principles has helped re-solidify them within myself. And then that's the other reason why Dave coaches us. I got to be completely frank with you. Dave coaches us because we ask great questions, and he wants to master his ability to communicate to mentees and even to maintenance and nostalgia people who aren't into personal development yet. So when we ask questions, it's helping him hone his craft on how to communicate more effectively. And on top of that, he also sponsors our show. But that's the other thing. So if you want more wisdom people, you need to understand what they value and then showcase yourself as the winning team in that thing and figure out what you can do to bring value to that. Kevin had a really great mention on the podcast episode we did earlier about teaser clips. And what's really cool is even just now at the beginning of this call, who was it that said they wanted to start an app? Emily, you wanted to start an app. And then Nathan, one of my other clients, literally was like, hey, I got you. So not only could you reach out to Nathan if you wanted to code your own app and he could teach you some things, or you could even hire him. Like we go to Tiff to do MailChimp. We go to Tiff for our website. She's redoing our website. Why? We don't know anything about websites. But Tiff comes to us for certain other things. And so again, the key is understanding where, not only who are your associations and where do they fit in this framework, but where do you fit? What are you the expert in? Guys, I am bad at some stuff, but there's certain things that I have dialed in. If you want to achieve a fitness goal, I'm telling you, I have it dialed into a science. And business, I'm getting there. So where are you in the wisdom bucket? Where should you be in the mentee where you're acting like a wisdom? And those are other good questions of self-awareness that are absolutely key too. So far, does anyone have any questions on these buckets? I want to make sure we're opening it up to questions along the way.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. First of all, I just wanted to tell everybody taking notes that y'all are awesome.
Yeah.
And second of all, I think maybe touch on where family falls. Like, I think that's a touchy subject, but like you might be finding that your family isn't super encouraging to you when you tell them about your dreams. So it's not just old friends and like people who aren't into personal development. It's like the people who care about you as well.
Kev, can I quickly tell the story of the monkeys, man?
Jesus. Yeah, we can talk about the monkeys.
It'll be super fast.
Yeah, we can talk about the monkeys.
All right. So I actually, Taryn, thank you for saying that, because I thought about writing family here, and I think I didn't because it's a very touchy subject. But I think it's something we should talk about, especially during quarantine. Okay? There's this story that I heard that I think really illuminates something valuable, and I'll give you the very quick version. I call it the story of the 4 monkeys. Okay. They put a monkey in a room, and they brought a monkey in. There was bananas at the top of a pole, and the monkey was really hungry. The monkey went to climb and grab the banana. The moment it touched a banana, they sprayed it in the face with a cold water. Okay. Now, I didn't do this experiment. I know it's cruel. It is what it is. Okay. They took that monkey. They did it again and again and again until the monkey stopped climbing. Okay. They conditioned the monkey to see pain when they touched the bananas. Second monkey comes in. The second monkey's like, dude, why aren't we climbing? Goes to climb. The first monkey pulls the second monkey down. This keeps happening. Third monkey, fourth monkey. The fourth monkey is trying to grab the bananas. All three are pulling him down. The first monkey gets taken out. Eventually, there's 4 monkeys in a room. There's bananas at the top. They're all hungry and no one climbs and no one knows why. This is called conditioning. It is happening to all of us, whether we like it or not. And it is such shit. I see it all the time. And that's why I tell people I will literally brainwash you into believing in yourself, because the truth is you can do stuff way beyond what you're currently think you're capable of. I've seen it my whole life. I've always been fortunate enough to have self-belief, but I have friends who literally I watched their mother and or their parents like tell them, like take the wind out of their sails constantly. And I'm so adamantly against people saying you can't do something. Tell me I can't do something and I'm going to do it 10 times more. But someone who has self-doubt and already struggles, and then your loved one who you look up to and admire tells you you can't do it, what are the chances you're going to break rapport, right? So the family thing is huge. The only thing I'll say is that there's a way to limit the amount that you allow that person, because their limiting beliefs might not even come from them. It might have been from their parents or their parents' parents. Only you know what you can do. And like, look at what Kevin's capable of. Like this, you didn't believe any of this was possible.
No.
None of this, right? So all of the beliefs you have about what you can and can't do are made up. Let's get rid of that script and let's rewrite a new one with people like this who actually do believe in possibilities. And when it comes to the family stuff, I think nostalgia bucket is where most of them fall. Sometimes if you're very blessed, you can have family members that are in the wisdom bucket. So for example, one of my mentors is my girlfriend's father, and he's far, far ahead of us in business. And so that's a wonderful thing. And that's a wonderful relationship. So family can fall into any bucket, but I gotta be real. Most of the time it will fall into this bucket. I have clients who were told not to go to Your World Within Live in Florida because it was a cult. And this very person who I'm referring to, it changed their life probably more than any decision they've ever made. And so if you let your family hold you back, and here's the cool part, when you do eventually succeed, they'll be the ones saying, I knew you could do it. And it's like, no, I was crying for like nights and nights and nights alone by myself. So that's the other thing, like use it to fuel you. You're going to have naysayers. You got to use it to fuel you.
The problem usually is people don't doubt you. They doubt themselves.
Right.
So how could you succeed if I can't? I think a lot of times your family is looking out for you, and it's not that they don't believe in you. They don't believe in themselves. So they don't want to see their loved one get hurt. So I do think one way is, and this is kind of a painful question, do you want the results that your family has?
Ooh.
For me, like I asked myself that question and my answer was no. I love my family to death. They've been awesome to me, but I don't want that life. I'm working for something different. And my family didn't understand this. They told me to get a job. Like, you're going to leave a 6-figure job to go podcast. What is a podcast? What does that even mean? How are you going to make money? You're going to be a speaker. You've never spoken before in your life. Now they're all about it, but they also see how happy I am. They don't even care about the results now, when that's all they cared about when I was traveling. My mom would talk about how much money I had all the time. Now she talks about how I help people. So I think that, like Alan said, you don't even have to get the results. You have to get the fulfillment along the way, and then they'll see that. And I think the other thing is, when you have people in your growth and wisdom buckets, you can lean on them a little more. You're never going to not love the people, your family, but just because you love them doesn't mean you have to take advice from them. Just because you love them doesn't mean you have to live the same life or let them control you in that way. And I know it is easier said than done, but I think it's one of those things of, would you regret not continuing? And how are you going to feel about your family if you let them alter the entirety of your life?
Number one regret of the dying, I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. People that love us, especially for who we are today or who we've been, they don't like when we change, because that might mean we aren't in their life as much. The first monkey was trying to protect the second monkey. And just like Kevin's family was trying to protect him. They wanted him to succeed. They wanted him to be successful. So they used their own belief system, and they thought, if they don't even know what a podcast is or how to make money at that, of course they're not going to say, yeah, go,
Right.
you know, ruin your life. From their perspective, he was ruining his life. Little did they know he was actually creating a wildly successful, fulfilling one. But if you can fight through those first couple years, I'm telling you, those very people that held you back at the beginning will actually come to you for help. I swear. It's happened. It's never not happened. There's still a few I'm waiting on, but it keeps happening more and more. It's really beautiful. So,
Hey, Kay, you got something?
What's up, y'all? What about in terms of how much work you try to move people higher up that slider ladder, right? So if you have people in your life that are below, how much do you just let them be there, and how much do you try to coax them across, or just let them go on their own journey?
We talked about this. People will say like, oh, you left me behind. I didn't leave you behind. You stopped working. I didn't leave you. It's not my job to take you. It's your job to put one foot in front of the other. There is somebody on this call that has reached out to me several times saying like, hey, I really want this goal. That's what determines it. Like, how hungry are you? Do you keep showing up when I'm busy? Like, do you keep showing up and understand why I'm actually doing this? Do you reach out when you need help, or you just say like, oh, I don't want to annoy you? Like, you're not annoying me. This is my life. So for me, it's about how much effort is that person putting in? How consistently do they show up? Are they making excuses for themselves? Like that, for me, it's progress. Like, show me you want to be here, and I will take you, as far as I can in terms of you can follow in my lead. Maybe you want something different. But I told Alan this on the episode today. My goal is to be in my dream house with my dream family and having those people over. Like, I'm never going to lose love for them. The problem is I don't know that they'll want to be there because they're going to think I left them behind.
So for anyone wondering what I just wrote there, and thank you, AK, for that question. That's absolute fire, because I've struggled with that my whole life. I'm sure you have as well. To me now, I look at, like Kevin said, effort. So I wrote trying. If they're trying to jump buckets, I would say help them. If they're open to it. If they're trying to get you back, cut that. One of the biggest mistakes I've ever made is trying to get people to see potential in themselves. The hard part about this is sometimes it works. But the amount of time and energy that you could have poured into someone who's ready and able and wants, that's the only difference between a maintenance person and a mentee person, is that the mentee is ready and wants. So I think of the one quote of, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Is the student ready? And are they ready to jump up? Because if so, they're going to actually be willing to learn, and they're going to be humble. I've had people, like, I often tell the story about when I first started working with Kevin. It kind of screwed me over in a certain way. It didn't really, but his work ethic is so good that everyone I had been working with prior, it was like obvious to me that I need to stop. Because when I saw what he was capable of, it literally was like, I don't know if I can keep working with these other people. He's just got such high work ethic. And I always thought, and this was an arrogant thing, but this was my honest thought, I didn't know of anybody that had worked as hard as me. When I found someone who did, and I knew that existed, I was like, oh my God, what if I have a whole team of people like that? But here's what I was doing. The reason why I thought that, oh, I'm so hardworking, it's because I was in this. I was only here. Mostly here, honestly. Of course I'm the hardest working in Uxbridge, Massachusetts. Grow up, Alan. And so when I found Kevin, immediately was like, oh my God, there's people with even greater work ethic than me. Let's find them. And then let's create a magnificent life together. And so if I could go back, honestly, I would stop trying to help people who don't want to be helped. And I would focus all of that time and energy on people who are ready and able and willing to learn.
They're the truth too. Oh, go ahead, Taryn.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kevin. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Let it fly.
I had another question, so I don't want to take you off this train of thought.
I was just going to say, it's their truth. Like, if there's a difference between saying you want it and then showing me you want it. And if you show me you want it, I will do whatever I can to get you there, because that's why I'm here. That's the only reason I do this, right? To help as many people as I can. So
Dave Meltzer wouldn't coach us unless we always showed up and we always showed prepared.
Right.
He wouldn't. There's no way. If you've seen his calendar, like, he's going to focus on the people And this is the other thing we were going to talk about too. Like, be seen as the winning team. Be seen as the people that will never stop and that are doing it for the right reasons. And people want to help those people.
For sure.
Taryn.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you guys could tell us about some ways to grow those engine buckets, to grow those relationships with people who will fall in those buckets. So when you look back and you realize you're kind of surrounded by those anchors, what are your suggestions for growing those new relationships?
There's a couple things. We're actually going to talk about that when we go into getting like mentors, wisdom bucket. But I think a great thing is this. So Taryn, you, myself, and Alan met where? At a networking event, right? An event where a bunch of people, growth-minded people went. Now, you might meet 1,000 people, but it's what you do after. After the moment has faded, after like, oh, I was in California, it was so nice. When that goes away and it's time to get to work, I would challenge everybody in here to connect with everybody else, because that's what you're doing. You're currently building your growth bucket. That is the reason we're doing this, because we realize so quickly that we're on masterminds every week with people that are like way better than us. And then we get on masterminds with people that are like with us, and we're able to add so much value, and they add so much value to us from different ways. I think it's in the follow-up. So living intentionally, knowing that when I leave this call, I want to have one new connection. That always works for me. Setting an intention of making a connection and leaving knowing more people than I came with. That works. Alan, what do you got?
So a lot of things. First of all, what Kev just said. So there's people on this call, like, let's just use like fitness. There's people that will fall in wisdom. There's people that will fall in growth. There's people that would fall in mentee. And then there's people who don't care about fitness. There's no right or wrong. You guys can fill all of these buckets on this call.
Right.
Honestly. And that's the coolest part about why we did, like, literally we did this because we were doing live events. So we hosted Top Notch Live, and we wanted to bring incredible, empowered leaders together, not only on stage, but in the audience for that mastermind. I'll never forget when I was looking down the hallway at Top Notch Live and everyone was eating pizza and talking to each other. It was like, it made me so happy. And why? Because in my head, I was like, this is what everybody's doing. They're all right here. The story I often tell too about Top Notch Live, it's called Margaritaville, where we hosted it. Everyone in that hotel, other than people at Your Row Within Live, were there to vacation and to party. It's called Margaritaville. What I found really interesting was that the people with lanyards who were there to network, to grow, to learn, were like a team all of a sudden, like a group of fish out of water that are like, we're here for a different reason. And it was so obvious to me when I was walking the halls and stuff at Margaritaville, like, those people are here to vacation. These people are here to learn with notebooks. And so that's what this is, this virtual. We're all in quarantine right now. We were hosting live events. We want to host these because live events we can't do right now. And so that's the main reason. And so how do you get mentees, wisdom bucket, and growth bucket? I'll tell you what my aunt taught me. I said, Auntie, 13 years ago, you started your entrepreneurial journey. If you could go back and do one thing differently and spend most of your time there, what would it be? She said, networking 3 times. You should be networking constantly, all the time. Now, what she should have said is networking with the right people based on your unique core values and your unique goals and dreams. And that's what this is. Everyone in this room is better than someone else at something else. And I know that, like, there's a lot of books and stuff, and you can learn a ton from that too. But I'll tell you what, let's say you have a book, The Compound Effect, and you read it and you're like, oh my God, this is everything. This is fire. Like, this is great. If I have a friend who also loves this book, who I talk about this book with every week, I'm telling you, the effect this book will have on me will literally 10x, because I have an emotional connection to it now. If you knew Darren Hardy personally, I guarantee you'd live these principles 10 times more than if you just read the book. Humans are emotionally driven. And so that's the thing, is like, again, I just went off a tangent here, but.
Well, I want to make sure we get into, so we haven't even really talked about the wisdom bucket yet. I want to make sure that we do. And Taryn, this applies to this as well. So why does Dave Meltzer, so wisdom bucket, this is people that are 10, 20 years ahead of you. They're walking, their daily life is your dream, right? So Dave Meltzer gets paid in upwards of $30,000 a speech. You know, I think one-on-one coaching with him is probably like, I don't know, probably $100,000 a year. He is one of the best speakers, one of the best coaches, super successful podcaster, all of these things. His walking pace is our all-out sprint. That's what we're aiming for. That's what a mentor, that's what somebody in the wisdom bucket is. You have to figure out what they value. And I know Alan talked about this a little bit. But why does Dave work with us? Well, because we always go above and beyond. We drove 6 hours to New Jersey to see him speak. Didn't even get to see him speak because the schedule was all screwed up. Then we stayed for 4 hours or something after and asked him questions. I was so in over my head, it was not even funny. Like, I couldn't even think at the end of it because you're talking about the universe and all this stuff. It's too much. But what did that do? That showed Dave that, like, oh, these guys, they're not here so they can take pictures and say, oh, I was with Dave Meltzer. They're not here to say they did personal development. They're actually living it, right? And that was something big for us. Then also, we got the opportunity to interview Dave in Boston. Hotel room was too small, so we literally stacked the beds on top of each other in the Hilton or wherever it was. And when he came in, he was like, oh, you guys are all about this, right? It just shows commitment. And he wants to empower people. He believes that we're capable of empowering people. So we fit into his grand scheme of things, his ultimate goal. And the example Alan used, if somebody came to me today and said, hey, I have been doing podcast teaser clips for 10 years. I really want to work on my mindset and I want to start my own podcast. Is that something you'd be interested in? I would probably say, yes, if you make us clips, I will coach you for free. Why? Because that's filling a need of mine in the moment.
Right.
It's kind of a trade-off. So if you can find out what somebody values, find a way to fill that value, you know, you're going to have yourself some form of relationship to start at least.
One of my main mentors was the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company, multiple actually. And I'm telling you, when I go to lunch with this man, I got my MBA, right? Like, I went to school for business. And I'm telling you, one lunch with this man, I learned more than I did in school, straight up. I remember asking him one time, what's the biggest challenge for a CEO of a billion-dollar tech company? And he said, it's dancing between short-term profitability and long-term growth. And then Kevin and I realized that we've been totally driving to 5 on those two things when he's totally focused on short-term profitability. And I'm always focused on, like, I don't care if we have to Flintstone in our cars, you know, to the podcast, we're going to win in the long run. And so the thing is I had to add value to his life though. I helped him in fitness. So he went to my gym and I helped him dial in his weight. So all I had to do was figure out what he cares about, showcase my value in that arena so that he wants to learn from me. There's 2 things he wants to learn from me. Number 1, the digital world and how to bring businesses virtual. And number 2, fitness. He wants to be in shape. As soon as I locked in on that, I was just like, add value, add value, add value, add value. Now he's willing to get lunch with me. He's willing to get dinner with me. Now we're close friends. Now my Aunt Jane, who's an IT executive or high up in IT, is going to we're going to go to dinner with my Aunt Jane and Jeff. And she's an IT project coordinator now. And I said, you got to connect with Jane. And so there's mentors everywhere. Number 1, you got to look for them. Number 2, your mentor will only, you're not going to like notice something until you first set the intention for it. So if you say right now, all of you, I'm going to fill my wisdom bucket. Okay. All of a sudden you're going to start noticing people. You're going to be like, wow, like that person would be a really good mentor. I was on a phone call with a client recently.
Jeff, we got 5 minutes, just FYI. I know you're about to go off here.
Okay. I'll be quick. When you want to buy a car, you decide in advance what kind of car you want. Now, all of a sudden, you start noticing that car everywhere. Same thing. Yes, I'm about to say reticular activating system. Yep. And that's what you got to do with mentors. So set the intention now to fill these buckets, and I promise you opportunities will come. The key is to add value to them in ways that they value, and then they'll come and be attracted to you.
Fire. All right, so do we want to set intentions, or first of all, is there any questions on this framework? My challenge to each and every one of you would be after this to sit down and really, really be honest with yourself. You can message Alan or myself. We've done this enough times to know that it can suck at times. We're here to support you in any way. But is there any questions in terms of this framework? Anything we didn't cover that you guys want covered? Any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess other than just, mentally setting that intention to, seek out and find some of those people from the higher buckets, any quick tips on bringing those people into your life?
So I think first and foremost, setting the intention so you notice it. Secondly, you got to be very observant. You got to look at what people care about. And so, for example, use David Meltzer as an example. His mission is to empower others to be happy. So he focuses most of his time, if you watch his schedule and if you watch his social media, on helping other people with personal development and improving the quality of their life. Kevin and I, every single episode is about helping people improve the quality of their life. So I saw this opportunity of like, okay, if he wants to empower others to be happy, and he's focusing on leading leaders, all I have to do is showcase that Kevin and I are leaders on that same mission. And if he helps us, we're going to help all of you. And now all of a sudden he wants to help us because he's seeing that that is a part of his already congruent mission.
Yep.
And we did an episode on the law of attraction recently, right? If you theoretically, not theoretically, from our practice, what we've seen is when you start setting intentions and living intentionally and saying what you actually want, the universe starts providing those things. So Mark Mentee, Alan and I were like, we need to find somebody and get them into our life as a podcast mentor, somebody who knows podcasting as well, if not better than us, because we're usually the podcast guys. We ended up interviewing him. We were going to do a remote interview. We said, hey, you live in Boston? Come down to the studio. We'll do an in-person. He mentioned to us, I really want to get in shape. Boom. Something he values that we're really good at. Then Alan came up with the idea, all right, let's do a 1 hour lift, a 1 hour business/podcast/ mindset mastermind. We've been doing that ever since. He literally just texted me, Mark Mentee, about fitness. So it really is, I mean, at the end of the day, most people aren't giving stuff away for free. Everybody has a need that they're looking to get met. If you help somebody accomplish their intention, they're probably going to help you with yours.
Right.
Your mentor doesn't have to be a millionaire either. Like,
no, that's true.
We're just using a great example of Dave, but like, you just need a person who knows more about you in one particular area, and they can be your mentor.
For sure. For sure.
And I encourage all of you to host masterminds with each other. Like, Kevin and I have 4 or 5 a week or something we have for the last few years. It's unreal what these conversations will do, especially when it's with people you care about. We're very, very blessed to have our life designed around this stuff. And I encourage all of you guys to do the same, because if I look back on a year or two ago, it's like unreal what's happened. Okay. Do you want to set intentions before we go?
I think we can either do intentions, or we could say that this could be the homework exercise.
Okay.
And then we could start next week. I think that's what we should do.
Yeah,
every week we should have some form of framework.
Yeah.
And then practice it throughout the week, and then we can check in on that, and then we can do that.
Is everybody cool with that?
Everybody dig it?
Yeah?
I'm done.
Okay, fire. All right. So what should the homework be? I think, honestly, taking your associations and figuring out which buckets they fall in, and then which buckets are empty for you. Like what's the bottleneck? Which is the heaviest bucket and which is the lightest bucket, and then what are you going to do about it?
And your results reflect that.
Say again?
Do your results reflect that? That's another thing. Like, really be honest. Like, oh, I've really been slacking in terms of my fitness game because I've been spending time with a bunch of people who don't value fitness. Nothing against them. They just don't want what you want.
Right. So I'm going to erase this, but I did take a picture of it. I will put it in Hyperconscious Nation, and I'm just going to write down the homework so everyone has it, okay?
While Alan does that, don't forget to add me on Facebook if you want to join our book club.
Book club.
First meeting is Saturday at 1 Eastern Standard Time. We're reading The Biology of Belief. It's going to be great.
It is.
Bring notes.
You only have to read chapter 1 for that meeting.
Yeah, I saw your ad. Way to go.
All right, homework for everybody. Kev.
Yes.
3 simple steps. What do we got?
3 simple steps. Oh, goodness. Write down where the closest associations in your life are in terms of the bucket.
Okay.
Ass. I'll write it out. Number 2.
Become crystal clear on which buckets need more people. Like what is lacking and what has too much.
Right. Which buckets are
And
lacking?
again, remember, when you guys do this, it's nothing personal. I don't want you to think like, oh my God, I can't write that about it. This has nothing to do with their character as a person. I have some amazing people that are in my nostalgia bucket, but they're just not incongruence to what I want long term.
Yeah, this does not mean you don't care about them. Not at all. Which are too full. Okay. And then third.
Fill them. Start figuring out
Strategy.
actual ways that you can fill them.
Develop game plan to fill.
We were talking about this too. Right now, there's so many online masterminds. Dave Meltzer does one, I think, every Friday. He does a bunch. There's just a ton of people that are doing it. So if you search and you find other groups like this, feel free to jump in them, and who knows, you'll come out of that with somebody that you may have never met before. Same here. Like, don't be afraid to connect with people after this.
Right.
We're all in this for the same reason. You guys can text or message Alan and myself. Text me if you have my number or whatever. But we're all in this for the same reason. We're trying to grow as much as we can.
Beautiful, beautiful thing. Develop game plan to balance them. So not just filling the wisdom one, but also disassociating a little bit in terms of the time allocation to the other ones that don't serve you. And yeah, right now is a really good time to connect with like-minded people virtually, because people are, again, sitting at home and they want love and connection. So I was recently able to coach Doc Jen Fit because she started a podcast, and all I did was reach out on Instagram. So everyone in this space is looking at their DMs. You have a really good opportunity through social media to connect with people that you would never have been able to connect with in the past. So I just encourage everybody to come up with this. So number one, write closest associations in terms of the buckets. Like, put people in the buckets. Which buckets are lacking and which ones are too full? Identifying that. Most likely all of our wisdom buckets are lacking, and our nostalgia or maintenance buckets are probably too full. And then number three, develop a game plan to balance them. The game plan should be a consistent thing you do. So one of my clients, I have her sending out specific messages once a day to people in mentee, growth, or wisdom buckets. It's a daily practice. You don't just, start working out and suddenly you're in shape. It's a constant thing. Cool?
So are these people you know personally, or could they be like Tony Robbins or?
They're people in your life that you're directly connected and influenced by. But the mentor, I mean, yeah, you can have somebody like that. I would consider that more of an idol and a role model, just because you're looking up to them.
Do you mean for step 3 or step 1?
For your wisdom bucket.
Okay. Do you mean like writing your closest associations? If they're a current association, then that's where you put them in the buckets. But when you're trying to develop a game plan to get more wisdom buckets, I would say, throw your heroes in there for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else?
Can you give just a quick, I'm sorry, I know we're out of time, but difference between the wisdom and the growth bucket?
Sure. Growth are people that are on a similar level. So these are people that you would mastermind with. Wisdom are people that are 10 to 20 years ahead of you. Their day-to-day is like your dream life.
Gotcha. Okay.
It comes down to standards. Like someone who makes 10 million a month is going to be mentored by someone who makes 1 million a month. Fitness, same deal. Are they way ahead of you? Are they on chapter 12 of the book you're writing?
Okay. Yep.
Cool.
Right on.
All right. I'll take a picture of this. Someone say something?
Oh, I was just.
I got a quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
So I got into this a little bit late, and I will look at the restructuring when you put the picture up. But so basically, you're saying you want to jump buckets yourself, and you want us to fill up our buckets with the people, but the buckets get too full, and you need to lose people. That's what we're going for here?
Yeah, if you think of it as like a weight, if you have a ton of people in your nostalgia bucket,
it's eventually going to fall.
No, not necessarily. Consider this. All right, so consider it like on a scale. If your buckets of nostalgia and maintenance are super heavy, that means there's a ton of people in them. Your progress is probably going towards that. So whichever is heavier is going to kind of lead you to your results. So it's kind of, it's more about reallocating the weight and the people in the buckets.
Okay, so not so much looking at yourself in where you are, but everybody else around you.
In theory, as you level up, you should see the same in the buckets. So
In the buckets gaining. I
yeah.
understand.
And like you could go to mentor and you could be menteeing somebody that, you know, you used to not be there with. So as you grow and expand, the buckets are going to look different anyway because of perspective.
Exactly. All right, great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I actually have one last question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's something that you kind of talked about, but it's like I'm surrounded by people who are not on the same mission or not the same vision. And I always feel like in terms of, because I'm really passionate about mindset and personal growth and spirituality and how to grow with that. And it's like, I always feel that I'm a bit higher on a different level, but I'm trying to see like how, like I don't find people better than me, that I always want to be around them so that we can grow together. But I always find myself that I'm around people who I can help, but when I want to share the knowledge, I'm like, okay, I'm sharing as much as I can, but then I'm not growing. So there's this thing or this fear of like, how much do I share? Because I feel that I'm stuck and not growing, kind of.
I think you share as much as you humanly can, because what that means is you might be heavier in your mentee bucket. And I know that's what you're saying. You're trying to get your growth in your wisdom bucket. I would say start putting yourself out there more. Is there a subconscious fear of yours that you don't belong in the room with somebody who is way ahead? That would be my first question. That was me for a long time. I don't get that impression from you, Ida, because we've spoken before. But I think the other thing is reallocate some of the time that you're spending with your mentees on getting more growth in wisdom people, because that's actually going to help you grow your mentee bucket. And you'll be able to grow your mentee bucket probably into a growth bucket eventually as well. I said bucket 12 times, but.
I love these questions. Thank you guys so much for engaging. So Ida, do you have a specific example? Like what's one thing that you want to master that you don't feel like you have a lot of people ahead of you in?
Yeah, actually that's one. So I kind of feel that I'm really good in terms of mindset, but sometimes I'm like, okay, I might need some help in creating content that can attract more people. So that's something that I'm looking for per se.
So do you have any heroes that you look up to on Instagram that create great content?
I don't have some one person specifically that I look up to. I wouldn't say so.
Okay, so this is something we didn't mention, but the wisdom bucket is heroes too. So Darren Hardy's a hero of mine. I learned from him online. He has a training course called Insane Productivity. I am telling you, it's the best money I've ever spent. It's so good.
So that's an important thing. Sometimes the wisdom bucket is finance too. You can pay to get in somebody's wisdom bucket.
Right.
That's another thing.
So the wisdom bucket also can be books. Your mentors can be books too. So if right now you don't know of anyone that you want to learn from, that you know in person, you can learn from them via books or their online training courses first, then elevate to a level where you can get on their radar. So for example, we had Britt Franks, one of Darren's mentees, on our stage. And now Britt's a good friend of mine. And who knows, one day I'll meet Darren. That's not necessarily why I did it. I believed in Britt long before, but I saw Britt on Darren's content. She came in and did a Darren Daily one time, and she actually talked about that on our stage, which was really cool. So it's not just about knowing who's up here with your heroes, who you've never met, but it's knowing who you can learn from along the way to eventually get there.
Ada, is it Ada?
Yeah.
Okay. Jenna Kutcher is a really good, like with social media content. She's got a podcast too. But she's somebody good who, I mean, maybe during this time, reach out, try and DM her. Maybe she's around. Obviously her life probably hasn't changed too much since she's been virtual her whole time, but she's somebody good to like look at for content development. Social media is hard to like develop content and get people to kind of grab on and engage and interact, but she's somebody who is a good reference.
Would you mind sending her name?
Yeah, I'll put it in. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And actually, there's another thing that came up in mind. So thank you so much. Yeah, is the idea of, so like you said, it's very good to have mentors and people who can, or like look at some things that you are not good at and have people help you with. But this other aspect that I noticed about myself is that okay, I need some help, let's say in social media marketing. But this other aspect of me is like, did I even try before I need the help? So that was something that made me realize, okay, like, let me try first, and if I'm not capable of achieving that, then might as well look for help. So that was kind of the balance or the challenge that I had at the beginning. So that's why, like, I recently started, like, you know what, okay, I'm gonna try to opt up my videos, or just add more things that I can with what I have now, and see that, okay, if I'm not doing well, then ask for help. So I felt that was kind of, yeah.
There's a thing that I'm noticing. Are you looking for a fish, or are you looking to learn how to fish? Because if you really want to master social media, you could go learn from someone who's mastered social media while doing your own social media, versus like hiring someone to do it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's what I would recommend. I would recommend learning from someone who you resonate with, who has fire social media, either learning from observing them or getting them as a mentor or a coach, doing your own social media as a practitioner, and then transition eventually to, I don't even want to do this myself, I'm going to hire somebody. But you don't want to delegate what you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anything else? All right.
This is the best one yet, guys.
We appreciate it. Do you like the format? You like the format of the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. Right on. Well, we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we have that recorded. Just kidding.
Yeah, well, that's going to be the teaser clip. Just that.
Yeah, exactly.
Best one yet.
I'm just
Best
joking.
one yet. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. If anything comes up in the meantime, obviously send us a message. Most of you have my number, so text me, whatever. But we appreciate you guys. We couldn't do this without you, and we love you.
We love you guys so much. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will talk to you all next week. I will put the pictures of the whiteboard in Hyperconscious Nation.
So if you ain't in it,
Great.
get in that thing.
And I'll tag everybody as well.
Awesome.
Awesome. Talk to you guys
Thanks,
soon.
everybody.
Adios.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.